The most basic needs of the Puerto Rican people represent lucrative business for U.S. companies, and we especially see this when it comes to electricity. It is well known that Puerto Ricans have suffered outages for a very long time, but the power utility used to be public. It was the government that ran the power utility, but Puerto Ricans were told, once we privatize that, once it is private companies that are in charge, things will get better. Outages will be a thing of the past, electricity will be cheaper. Well, that hasn't happened. Just last week, there were more than 300,000 people without electricity. Voltage issues are causing people to lose their appliances. So of course, we have to look at who's in charge now. I told you before that the transmission and distribution of energy is at the hands of Luma. That's a US-Canadian company. They're in charge of the power lines and power poles. But the Puerto Rican government also wanted to privatize the generation of energy, that is the power plants. And here's where it gets interesting. Because they chose a natural gas company, and not just any natural gas company, but one that already had millions of dollars in contracts to supply natural gas to Puerto Rico. The company's new Fortress, the CEO is billionaire Wes Edens, who's a well-known political donor to both Republicans and Democrats. So New Fortress created Genera PR, and we're giving them $22 million a year, plus incentives that go up to $100 million a year. Critics of this decision were like, isn't this a conflict of interest? Because whomever's in charge of the generation is going to have to make decisions like, what fuel do we use, who do we buy it from, and this is a company in the business of selling natural gas. Of course, the Puerto Rican people were told there's going to be no conflict of interest, don't worry about it. But not only are we buying more natural gas from New Fortress, but we're investing in infrastructure for natural gas, including a potential extension of a pipeline. The company says we have to do this because we're heading into hurricane season, and without the extra natural gas, they might not be able to meet people's power needs. But environmental leaders and others say you don't make this kind of investment without locking us into using natural gas in the long term. This matters because there's legislation mandating Puerto Rico to transition to renewable energy, and their community saying we want to produce our own energy through wind and solar. And when this comes up, I'm always reminded of a congressional hearing where U.S. lawmakers insisted on selling natural gas to Puerto Rico. One Congress member said, we have abundant natural gas that we're seeking to export more of. And I cannot help but wonder if this is a case of perpetuating Puerto Rico's colonial dependence so that U.S. companies can profit.